flash-leaf bunting, spotted towhee, McGillies, warbler.
Fire.
What might link these? Yeah, you're 2 steps ahead of me. Well, to some extent, these are all habitat generalists, but they're all birds that like kind of shrubby habitats, and they particularly like shrubby edge habitats. And what creates shrubby edge habitats in the Sierra? As you said, fire. And what we've had in the last 30 or 40 years is a lot more fire, particularly a lot more large-scale stand clearing fires that really create a lot of this kind of habitat. Is that the whole reason? I don't know, but it may well be part of the reason. And we find that pretty consistently. There are probably, maybe 9 out of 12 of sort of the chaparral type birds, and birds that really like fire adapting are all doing well in this area. So, and then in the west, they'll be clearly out. There's one problem with this really nice map in National Geographic. It is wrong. It is wrong right where we in California care. This is Lake Tahoe right here. The map shows that all of these birds, it should be Madison County and Plumas and Sierra County and Nevada and Placer County, it shows all these being in the Pacific. They are not. Here I've recorded to several other people. All the birds in here are tenuissima, but we don't know exactly what their range boundaries are. So we actually don't know how to draw the range maps for these birds. So this again is where folks can help. Learn this call note. Spend time in the Sierra, record your sightings. Anybody that isn't using eBird, go Google eBird, sign up for a free account. It allows you to keep your list. It also allows you to contribute data from anything that you're doing. It's a great way for us to begin to understand what the actual border is. Okay, let me play the call notes again. And most of you are familiar with. And here's tenuissima. Okay. Now I'm going to take you on a really quick transect from the western foothills up through the coniferous forest, up to the highest elevations, and down the east side. Okay? Well, starting in the foothill of Savannah on the west side, one of my favorite habitats, because I spend a lot of time. Gorgeous mix of grasslands and oaks. A lot of this kind of habitat. A number of characteristic birds. Everybody's favorite girl, western meadowlark. That's a great song. We got the good meadowlark, by the way. Have you ever heard an eastern meadowlark song? One of the cool things about meadowlarks and a number of other species is that they sing almost year-round. So you can hear this song almost year-round, but they stop late summer into early fall. They stop singing. So I mentioned William Dawson earlier. He writes about this sort of thing a lot. And he was writing about this very observation that you go through this period where you're not hearing western meadowlark song, and you're sort of missing it. And then finally in fall, you finally hear that first western meadowlark start singing again. And here's how Dawson described that sensation. He said, it's as though the bird caught the music of a May day, just at its prime, in a crystal vase, and was now pouring out the imprisoned song. That had a wayward word. If you know anything about Joseph Grinnell, you can know why Grinnell didn't take him. He was pretty straight-laced. Characteristic bird, those areas. Acorn woodpecker, fascinating bird. A lot of folks probably know it's. He gave Woody Woodpecker his voice. And Woody Woodpecker looks like a pilot in it, but he has the voice of an acorn woodpecker because Walter Land was not a birder. One of the most fascinating things about these birds, you're probably aware that they live communally, and the whole group will create a granary tree where they'll store a bunch of acorns, and then the whole colony will participate in creating that granary and then guarding it from other folks. But the most remarkable thing, and almost unique among birds, is that they are communal even in their breeding. So in a typical year, a colony, which might be anywhere from half a dozen to 20-some birds, maybe 2 or 3 females will breed that year. They'll lay their eggs in the same nest cavity, and when the young hatch, the entire colony will participate in feeding those young. You can see sometimes in large colonies, you can see when there's young at the nest, there'll be a whole line of acorn woodpeckers just lined up. It's very unusual among birds. Large sparrow is the prettiest of all of the large sparrow songs, and really one of the prettiest sparrows. Everybody that says sparrows are just little brown jobs, you can show them the large sparrows. And then in the spring, you get some new arrivals like asteroid flycatcher coming up from Central America. And to me, it is not spring until I hear my first voice order. So at similar altitudes in the Sierra, on the west side, you get into areas of extensive, nice narrow bullets over. You get into extensive areas of Foothill, Chaparral, and here you get a whole different suite of species. Again, very much fire-adapted species as well. There's a red bug there. Sometimes you get huge expanses of this sort of chaparral. You're looking and listening to California thrashers. Like all thrashers, crazy song, and he will go on and on and on if I let it. Well, these birds that can really skulk can be hard to see, and then suddenly they'll start singing and pop up out of bush and just give you great looks. And then a bird that is much harder to see but easy to hear. We've found a lot of different habitats over on the coast. Certainly likes these foothill habitats. Wren-tits have been a taxonomic pinball. We do not know where to put these birds. We don't know. They have been, at one time they were considered wrens, you might expect the name. One time they were considered chicks in the chickadee family. No, that was wrong. And then more recently it was decided that they were in the babbler family, but they were thought to be the only member of the babbler family in the New World. And then most recently, we decided, no, they're the only member in the New World of the Old World warblers. So right now, they're an Old World warbler. That's really making something up. No idea what this was. It must be from outer space. A very unusually good picture of her. All right, let's move up into the sort of habitat that people consider more typically Sierra, lower conifer, large variety of different coniferous species, but one of the best places to look for birds in this habitat is not so much in the conifer forest, but in the lower riparian areas that are often dominated by alders and cottonwoods and that sort of thing. Good place to listen to. Roasting. National warblers really like these sort of riparian areas. Often people's favorite bird is here. Not the prettiest song in the world, but sometimes described as sounding like a robin with a sore throat. Now, moving up in upper conifer, now we're getting a little higher elevation. A lot of this nice old growth kind of forest. A lot of classic birds that like to spend their lives on the bark, like brown creepers. Brown creepers, of course, will almost exclusively forage up. So they'll typically go from the bottom or from low in the trunk going up, and then they'll fly to the bottom of the next trunk and go up on that. Until you're leading a field trip and you tell people they always go up and then the next one is. And red-breasted nuthatch, which you heard in the background of generally, they will more often go down than up. So to some extent, it may be a way that these two species may coexist, because the creeper is going to see all the little bugs in the crevices going up, and the nuthatch is going to get the ones when they're going down. prolific, the most common warblers in this sort of habitat is hermit warbler. The early naturalists in the Sierra thought that hermit warbler was extremely rare. One of the reasons that it got that name, hermit warbler. But that's because most of the early naturalists didn't know much of anything about bird song. Right? They counted on shooting a bird and then identifying it. And as anybody who's been in the Sierra and looked for hermit warblers know, where are hermit warblers in the Sierra in the breeding season? They're at the tops of the tree. And they're really hard to see. But if you learn the song, which is a little buzzy song, you soon discover that in much of the Sierra, they're actually the most abundant warbler. They actually outnumber yellow rump warblers in a lot of the Sierra. But if you didn't know the song, you would never know. And then probably almost everybody's favorite singer. Beautiful, beautiful song. And of course, Dawson had something to say about the hermit thrush song as well. He said, "He who has never heard the evening requiem of the hermit has missed the choicest thing which nature in California has to offer." That could be over the top. It is a beautiful, beautiful song. Some of the riparian areas in the upper Coniferous, especially some of the ones in old growth, really nice little shady areas like this. Really good place to look for Pacific wren. It used to be winter wren. This is a tiny, tiny, tiny little bird, right? Itty bitty. Smallest birds with this little cocked up tail. Very much a wren. But I like to describe it as the bird with the highest ratio of song to bird. If you know this bird's song, it's unbelievable. It's loud, it's complex, it goes on and on and on. And if you ever get a chance to see one singing in your binoculars, you'll find out, as Ted assures me, he took this picture and he says this bird was in focus. It's just vibrating so fast. It just looks like a bird, and it's true. It's amazing thing to see. In a lot of different range of altitudes, you get these beautiful mountain meadows. Certainly, of all of the habitat types in the Sierra, the one that was most heavily damaged, very heavily grazed from the very earliest year. In fact, by the time the first real naturalists got to the Sierra, there wasn't a pristine meadow left. And so we have not seen, we don't even know what a truly pristine Sierra meadow looks like, because they were already impacted by grazing. But there's been a lot of good restoration work done. And areas like this, Terrazzo Meadows, a good example. So you get these really beautiful little areas, meadow areas, with these little patches of willows going through there. And this is the place, and in my experience, the only place in the Sierra where you can find Lincoln sparrows. And Lincoln sparrows singing. So you can all see Lincoln sparrows pretty easily in the winter in all kinds of different habitats. But I have never heard a Lincoln sparrow sing in the winter, ever. A lot of sparrows sing all winter. I've never heard a Lincoln sparrow sing in the winter. So if you want to hear this really cool little song, you've got to find places like that. Well, so we'll come over first. And interesting little song. In case you can't tell, I'm crazy for sparrows. So you have a lot more sparrows. All right, then there's a whole different group of birds that you can hear and sometimes even see after dark. At the moon. Care of your astronomy lesson for that. What is that? Very man. Yeah, it's saying poor will. I'm a poor will. Which is found in, a lot of different elevations, west side and east side, probably a little easier on the east side. If you drive a really quiet dirt road late at night in the summer, put your high beams on, drive slowly, look for a little eye shine along the road. You love to sit on the little dirt roads, and they'll flutter up and catch an insect, a moth or something, and flutter down. And if you get them in the headlights, they'll just sit there. Sometimes you can actually walk up and touch one. There's Daryl here. He tried to kiss one in Sacramento County and almost succeeded. Get them in the headlights and make it quicker. All right, listen to this. This is a single species, two and maybe a third individual of a single species making all the sound you're about to hear. The most talkative owl in the planet, I think. Spotted owl. This is a California spotted owl, a different subspecies than the one you have here. Probably equally in trouble. Well, here's another bird. This is looking like this. It's an owl. And most people, when they hear this, they think it must be a big owl. But in fact, it's a tiny owl. It's a tiny owl. It's all about this big. The only completely migratory owl we have in the Sierra. They're strictly insectivores, but they only have in the Sierra for the breeding season. And they're probably more common than we realize. They're very sparsely distributed, but if you find a good place, they're pretty dependable. Really cool little birds. A really hard owl to see. All right, let's move up to the subalpine. Now we're getting into shorter growing season, fewer trees. Area around Mice Lake in Alpine County. Yosemite Park. Tornado Peak on the backside of Squaw Valley. And these open areas are really great places to find mountain bluebird breeding. And it's also a great place to see and almost always hear what I think is really the genius of the bird world. That's not gradual portion, as you can probably tell from the vocalization. There's a corvid in the jay crow family. And the reason I say it may be the genius, this bird may have the most prodigious memory, maybe, of any organism on the planet. They've been proven that their lifestyle is to gather pine nuts, a number of different species, but they probably use white bark more than anything else. They gather pine nuts in the late season, the summer when they're ripe, and they cache them in little groups of 3 or 4 or 5 all over the place. So they hide them in the ground all over the place, and then they live on those in the winter. And they've been documented to be able to remember well over 10,000 separate sites months later. And they can find these sites even when they're covered with several feet of snow. And they find them unerringly. They go straight to the spot. We really don't know how they do it. We know there are substantial changes to their brain that happen in the fall in the course of storing all this. Several times. I don't know any other organism that's been proven to be able to remember exactly many different things. I can't remember 3 anymore. I tell my wife if it's more than 2 things and I'm going to the store, I've got to have it. And then we've got a white-crowned sparrow, a different subspecies than the one that we have wintering or the one that breeds along the coast. White-crowned sparrow is unfortunately, Keith only painted half of this subspecies. So it's Orienta, or the mountain white-crowned sparrow. It's got black lores as opposed to the white lores of the Kimbel, which is the one that comes here for the winter, breeds in Canada and Alaska, comes down to California and spends the winter. And Orienta should winter mostly on the probably Southern California coast, Baja coast. Does not come down to the valley. I've never seen one in the valley. Photograph, you can see the black nose, the mountain icon. The color of the bill a little more orange than some of the other subspecies do. So a different kind of chaparral at higher altitudes with a different suite of species. Communicating chaparral. Great place to hear mountain quail. Interesting little peak sound. Now, I don't know about you guys, but about once every 2 or 3 months, I get an email from someone back here who says, I'm coming to California, can you show me a mountain flea? Of course, I'd say, well, I can take it where you can hear them, but I'm not sure you're going to get to see them. It can be really hard to see. If you're not trying, they can be easy to see, but they're not in front of you. And I can tell that I didn't, before a couple of years ago, I didn't know those were two feathers. You know, the little top knot on a California quail is a comma, and the top knot on a mountain quail is an exclamation point. And I didn't know it was two exclamation points. And a different species of fox sparrow, again, different from the one that you're going to find wintering down here, the Megaranger or the Foothill fox sparrow. A little song. Great song. That one just makes me smile every time I hear it. This bird is also interesting in that if you're up in the Sierra, you're at this high altitude montane Chaparral, and you think you know your call notes, and you hear a California towhee, so its call note is completely different from the fox sparrow subspecies that we have down here in the winter, which make a loud tip. They make a chink that sounds just like a California towhee. Okay, on up to the highest altitude, Alpine, so now we're getting above tree line, and many fewer species attack the backside of Mount Hoffman. Almost skip and a white-tailed ptarmigan right near here one time.
White-tailed what?
White-tailed ptarmigan. They've been introduced into the Sierra and they're found in a few places. And this is where you go to find our cover bird, great crown rosy finch. Highly sought after birds, and the Sierra, you pretty much have to go up to the very highest elevations to find these birds. They are birds of the Alpine and birds of the snowfields that tend to hang around the snowfields but linger late into the year. And just an example of a bird with a very restricted habitat range. There's another bird you'll find in this habitat that is just the opposite. Dark-eyed junco. So you're only going to find rosy finches breeding at the very highest elevation. Dark-eyed juncos breed on the valley floor, in the foothills, in the lower conifer, in the upper conifer, in the subalpine, in the alpine, and over on the east side, and everywhere in between. Any kind of habitat. Wooded, open, they're completely general. Really interesting thing. They certainly cover a wider range of breeding altitudes than any other seagull bird.